It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. A stunning wedding dress, a loving groom, and a future filled with promises. But when Chiamaka stepped out of the shower that morning, everything unraveled. Her dress, the symbol of her dreams, was gone. And when she looked out the window, what she saw would change her life forever. Her own sister, her blood, was setting it on fire. Chiamaka and Adanna were twin sisters, and they loved each other deeply. Though their personalities were different, their bond was unbreakable. Chiamaka was the lively and confident one, with beauty that turned heads wherever she went. She loved meeting people, laughing loudly, and being the center of attention. Adanna, on the other hand, was quieter and more thoughtful. She spent her time studying and dreaming about making a better life for their family. Their family lived a simple life in a small, cozy house in the middle of a busy neighborhood. Their father was a school teacher, and their mother sold fabrics at the market. Life wasn't easy, but they worked together to make it through. Both sisters were attending the same university, a place where new friendships, opportunities, and challenges awaited them. Chiamaka quickly became popular, her charm and beauty making her the center of attention. Adanna, meanwhile, stayed focused on her studies, often staying back after classes to read or help other students. Despite their different paths, the sisters always found time to share their thoughts and laugh together at the end of the day. But everything began to change when Kalechi, a wealthy and handsome student, entered their lives. His presence seemed to light up any room he walked into. Many admired him, but his attention was fixed on one person, Chiamaka. Little did they know, Kalechi's arrival would test their bond in ways they could never have imagined. Kalechi was the kind of man who turned heads wherever he went. Tall, confident, and effortlessly charming. He came from a family of wealth and status. When he joined their university, whispers about him quickly spread through the campus. Every girl wanted his attention, but Kalechi only had eyes for one person, Chiamaka. At first, Chiamaka thought he was just being friendly, but he'd smile at her in her own way, ask how her day was going, and throw in a light-hearted joke that always made her laugh. But soon, his gestures became more personal. He started walking her to class, waiting for her after lectures, and seeking her out during lunch breaks. His compliments were thoughtful, not shallow. "You have the most radiant smile," he once said. And for the first time, Chiamaka blushed. Before long, their casual conversations turned into deep talks. They shared stories about their lives, his privileged upbringing in a mansion surrounded by luxury, and her simpler life in a small house filled with love and hard work. Kalechi admired her humility and resilience, and Chiamaka found herself drawn to his kindness and warmth. One day, Kalechi surprised her by inviting her to a quiet cafe off campus. They spent hours talking, laughing, and forgetting the world around them. As they walked home, he stopped and looked at her. "Chiamaka, I don't know how else to say this, but I really like you. I think I've liked you from the moment I saw you." Chiamaka's heart raced. She had never imagined someone like Kalechi could feel this way about her. I like you too," she whispered, her cheeks flushing. When she told Adanna about Kalechi that evening, her sister's smile faded. "Chiamaka, are you sure about him?" Adanna asked cautiously. "He's rich, and we're not. What if he's just having fun and doesn't mean it?" Chiamaka reached for her sister's hand. "Adanna, I know you're trying to protect me, but he's not like that. He's genuine, I can feel it. He says he's serious about me, and I believe him." Adanna didn't want to argue, but unease settled in her chest. She didn't doubt Chiamaka's happiness, but the differences in their worlds bothered Atar. Deep down, she hoped her sister was right, but something about the situation left her restless. As Chiamaka's relationship with Kelechi blossomed, Adanna couldn't shake the feeling that something was bound to go wrong. Just a few weeks after their relationship began, Kelechi's surprised Chiamaka was the biggest gesture she could have imagined. He brought his parents to her home with an official proposal. The news left Chiamaka glowing with happiness, but Adanna couldn't help feeling uneasy. When the big day arrived, the twins' small home buzzed with excitement. Their mother had prepared her best dishes, and their father had tidied every corner of their modest house. Chiamaka's heart raced as Kelechi arrived with his parents. Kelechi's father, Chief Namdi, was a gentle man with a kind smile. As he stepped inside, he greeted everyone warmly, shaking hands and expressing gratitude for their hospitality. "All we care about is our son's happiness," he said, his voice calm and genuine. "And it's clear that Chiamaka makes him very happy." But Kelechi's mother, Madame Izane, was a different story. Dressed in elegant attire, she surveyed the house with sharp, judgmental eyes. "This house is quite small," she said, her tone laced with thinly veiled disdain. She glanced toward the narrow streets visible from the window. "And this area? It's so cramped." Her words cut through the room like a knife. Chiamaka's smile faltered for just a moment, before she quickly masked her hurt. "Please, sit down," she said politely, forcing warmth into her voice as she gestured to the chairs her family had carefully arranged. Kelechi's jaw tightened. He leaned toward his mother and whispered sharply, "Mama, stop! We're here for Chiamaka, not their house." Adanna sat in the corner, watching it all unfold. She saw through her sister's brave face, noticing the flicker of sadness in Chiamaka's eyes. Her own unease deepened. Despite Madame Ezine's comments, Chief Namdi remained gracious. "We're not here for the house or the area," he said firmly, addressing the room. "We're here because my son has found someone who makes him truly happy. That's all that matters to us." The words brought a moment of relief to Chiamaka's parents, who exchanged hopeful glances. They nodded politely, and her father managed a small smile. "We're honored that your family has come to us," he said. As the meeting wrapped up, the families agreed to the engagement. Chiamaka and Kelechi couldn't hide their joy, but in the corner, Adanna's worry lingered. Madame Izine's words replayed in her mind, and the faint smile she gave couldn't mask her growing concern. Something didn't feel right, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this proposal wasn't as perfect as it seemed. The engagement ceremony was everything Chiamaka had dreamed of, or so it seemed on the surface. The venue was bright and lively, filled with music, laughter, and the colorful attire of family and friends. Chiamaka glowed in her elegant dress, standing proudly beside Kelechi, who couldn't take his eyes off her. Her relatives beamed with pride, whispering among themselves, "She's so lucky to marry into such a wealthy family," one aunt said, her voice filled with admiration. "Achemia, our Chiamaka, becoming the wife of a chief's son." But Kelechi's relatives weren't as welcoming. In hushed tones, they cast judgmental glances at Chiamaka's family. "Why would he marry someone from such a poor background?" one of them muttered. "Surely he could have done better." The whispers didn't stop there. Madame Izine, Kelechi's mother, was colder than ever. She stood apart from the festivities, barely engaging with Chiamaka's parents or relatives. Her disdain was obvious. Every polite smile seemed forced, every note of acknowledgement half-hearted. Adanna noticed it all. While Chiamaka was swept up in the joy of the moment, Adanna's sharp eyes caught every side glance, every whispered insult, and every flicker of discomfort from Madame Izine. During the ceremony, Madame Izini avoided Chiamaka's mother and chose to sit with her own relatives, who followed her lead. The divide between the two families became glaringly clear. Adanna could see how it affected her mother, whose forced smile hid the hurt in her eyes. Chiamaka, however, seemed blissfully unaware, too enamored with Kelechi to notice the tension brewing around her. She laughed, danced, and soaked in the attention, believing her life was finally falling into place. But Adanna couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The disdain from Kelechi's relatives, the coldness from his mother, it all felt like a warning. As the evening went on, Adanna tried to push her worries aside, telling herself she was overthinking. Yet, deep down, the unease refused to leave her. She couldn't help but wonder if her sister's dream life was about to come with a price. After months of preparation and endless shopping trips, Chiamaka's big day had finally arrived. The weeks leading up to the wedding had been a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. Kelechi's family had spared no expense, making sure every detail of the ceremony was perfect. They had insisted on the finest bridal gown, exquisite jewelry, and lavish decorations. Chiamaka was overjoyed during the shopping trips, her eyes lighting up as she chose the dress of her dreams, a flowing white gown with intricate lacework and delicate pearls. Adanna had gone along, offering quiet support. While she smiled for her sister's sake, her unease about Madame Izine lingered. Madame Izine's coldness during the outings hadn't escaped Adanna's notice. She sat stiffly, watching Chiamaka with a sharp, disapproving gaze. Kelechi's father tried to balance the mood with warmth and encouragement. Madame Izine's attitude left a shadow over every joyful moment. Still, Chiamaka dismissed her sister's concerns. "She'll accept me in time," she had said with her usual optimism. "Kelechi loves me, and that's what matters." Finally, the morning of the wedding arrived. The villa was radiant, draped in flowers and shimmering lights. The air buzzed with the energy of guests arriving, laughter echoing through the halls. In her bridal suite, Chiamaka stood glowing with happiness, her gown neatly laid out on the sofa. "This is everything I've ever dreamed of, Adanna," Chiamaka said, her voice trembling with excitement. Adanna managed to smile. "You look like a queen, Chiamaka," she said, though her heart felt heavy with an unease she couldn't explain. As Chiamaka stepped into the shower to get ready, Adanna stayed behind, lost in her thoughts. Suddenly, the sound of soft footsteps broke the silence. Adanna turned her head just as the door creaked open slightly. Her breath caught as Madame Izine slipped into the room, her movements deliberate and cautious. Panicked, Adanna quickly ducked behind the heavy curtains by the window, peering out through a small gap. Her heart raced as she watched Madame Izine walk straight to the bridal gown, her sharp eyes scanning the room to ensure no one was watching. From her hiding spot, Adanna saw Madame Izine pull a small pouch from her pocket. She sprinkled a fine, glittering powder over the bodice of the gown, her lips moving in silent whispers. Then, she took out a small, sharp pin and fastened it discreetly to the left side of the dress, right over the heart. Adanna's pulse quickened. What was Madame Izine doing? She wanted to leap out and confront her, but fear held her back. She hugged Anna's pulse, although her hands were trembling so much. She wanted to leap out and confront her, but fear held her back. Satisfied with her actions, Madame Izine glanced around one last time before slipping out of the room. Adanna stepped out from behind the curtains, her mind racing. What had she just witnessed? Her sister's beautiful gown, a symbol of her happiness, was now tainted with something sinister. When Chiamaka came out of the bathroom, Adanna tried to explain. "Chiamaka, something's wrong. Madame Izine did something to your dress." Chiamaka frowned. "What are you talking about? Why would she do anything to my dress?" "She doesn't want you to marry Kelechi." "I saw her," Adanna insisted. Chiamaka didn't believe her. You've never liked this marriage. Maybe you're jealous. Adanna's heart sank. Jealous? I'm trying to protect you. But Chiamaka wouldn't listen. Desperate, Adanna grabbed the dress, ran to the window, and threw it outside. Before Chiamaka could stop her, Adanna lit a match and burned the dress. Chiamaka was furious. How could you do this? You've ruined everything, she screamed. Listen to me, Adanna pleaded. She put something dangerous on your dress. I couldn't let you wear it. Chiamaka hesitated, doubt creeping in. Why would she do that? Because she doesn't want you in their family, Adanna said. She thinks we're not good enough. Chiamaka's anger turned to confusion. Could Adanna be telling the truth? The tenor screamed. Could Adanna be telling the truth? The sisters rushed to the wedding venue, their hearts pounding with anger and urgency. Chiamaka, still wearing the hastily replaced dress her sister had helped her into, burst into the grand hall where guests had already gathered. The tearful chatter fell silent as all eyes turned to her fiery entrance. Kelechi, Chiamaka called out, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. She stormed up to him, standing tall despite the weight of the moment. What is your mother trying to do? Chiamaka crying. Kelechi, visibly startled, stood from his seat. Vier geen. Vier gamagast, vier Chiamaka, what's going on? What are you talking about? He asked, confusing clouding his face. Chiamaka spun around, pointing an accusing finger at Madame Ezine, who sat stiffly at a nearby table. Your mother sabotaged my wedding dress. She tried to ruin this day for me, for us. Gasps rippled through the crowd as all eyes turned to Madame Ezine. She blinked, her carefully composed mask slipping. What are you saying? She stammered, trying to feign innocence. Adanna stepped forward, her voice steady and full of resolve. I saw everything. She snuck into Chiamaka's room, sprinkled powder on the dress, and pinned something sharp over her heart. If I hadn't stopped it, who knows what might have happened. A murmur of shock spread through the room. Madame Yezinde stood abruptly, her hands trembling. I didn't mean any harm, she said, her voice faltering. Yes, Anter. Don't schrikken, Etenis. I was just trying to protect my son. Kelechi's face darkened as he turned to his mother. Protect me? From what, mother? He said, his tone cold and sharp. From the woman I love? From my happiness? Madame Ezine opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her guilt was plain for all to see. Kelechi stepped closer to Chiamaka, his voice firm and unwavering. I love her, and nothing you do will change that. The crowd looked on, their earlier whispers now replaced by a tense silence. In that moment, it was clear. No amount of sabotage or schemes could break the bond between Chiamaka and Kelechi. Kelechi turned to Chiamaka's family, his voice filled with regret. I'm deeply sorry for everything my mother has done, he said, his eyes meeting Chiamaka's. I promise to stand by you, no matter what. This day is about us, and I won't let anyone ruin it. He looked around the room and then turned to one of his close friends. Find the best designer in town and have a new dress delivered here immediately. Spare no expense. Chiamaka deserves nothing but the best. All eyes shifted to Madame Ezine, whose face was flushed with shame. She stepped forward hesitantly, her pride crumbling as she spoke. I was wrong, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I let my fears and arrogance blind me. Please, forgive me. I never meant to hurt you, Chiamaka. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Chiamaka's gaze softened as she looked at Kelechi, then at Madame Ezine. Her hands trembled as she spoke, her voice steady but emotional. Today is supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Holding on to anger will only darken it. I forgive you, Madame Ezine, But only if this truly ends here. Madame Essine nodded fervently, tears streaming down her face. It does. I promise it does. The tension in the room dissolved, replaced by relief and cautious smiles. Kaleaki reached for Chiamaka's hand, his grip warm and reassuring. Let's make this day ours, he said softly, and she nodded. As the ceremony resumed, the atmosphere shifted. Laughter and joy replaced the earlier unease. Guests cheered as Kaleaki and Chiamaka exchanged vows, their love shining brighter than ever. In the corner, Adanna stood quietly, a soft smile on her face. For the first time, the worry in her heart had lifted. Her sister was radiant with happiness, and seeing her joy made everything worthwhile. When the couple shared their first dance, Adanna clapped along with the crowd, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known before. This was how it was meant to be. Her sister happy, surrounded by love and acceptance. Music played and laughter echoed through the hall. Adanna whispered to herself, "This is her moment, and she deserves it all."